Ever wondered where your thrown away items end up, or the impact that our household waste has on the environment? Every day around Johannesburg, we generate a staggering amount of waste. And this is not where the story ends. This waste piles up, creating mountains of landfill. It doesn't just disappear. Instead, it lingers into the atmosphere for many years, slowly decomposing and releasing harmful gases into the Johannesburg atmosphere. The statistics are alarming. But what if I told you that there is a more sustainable solution to this growing problem? Clean City SA.
I'm sitting with one of the pioneers of a clean Johannesburg and a clean environment and inevitably clean air, Mr. Dalu, Cele.
The reason I founded the organization was because of the state of littering and illegal dumping within the inner city of Joburg. To say, why are people living in the inner city of Joburg being exposed to such an environment that is detrimental to their health and well-being? So that was the whole reason why I founded Clean City. So then within that process of the shutdown, then I identified a couple of low-hanging fruits within the inner city, and I found a place in Berea to start what we had called the Adopt a Street Volunteers Network. So the Adopt a Street Volunteers Network was or is about having a community living in a particular area to take pride within their environment. So we'll have a team of 25 people gathering every Saturday morning at the time to clean up their neighborhood. So each time they cleaned up their neighborhood, then they will earn 10 points. Then after they've accumulated 120 points, then we issued them with 300 Rand ShopRite vouchers at the time. But in any event, so what we're trying to do is just to get the community to just clean up basically street sweeping and litter picking around their community. So that's what, so in the first 3 months we couldn't get it on the ground, but we launched the first Adopt a Street Volunteers Network on the 4th of September 2020.
Wow. And so a couple of years later, I want to find out what impact, firstly, let's start off with what impact did the unclean environment, you must have picked up a lot of things as you were cleaning. What were some of the things that had a negative impact on the community?
So remember, if an area is infested with litter or illegal dumping, it already is not safe, it's not welcoming. So those are the issues that, like in our first Adopt a Street Volunteers Network, this was around Berea on Haltfit Road. So that's the area that we cleaned and the surrounding area. So as the volunteers were cleaning up every Saturday morning for an hour to 2 hours, we started seeing the trend and the changes within the community there, to such an extent that the community members started to talk with each other to say, guys, don't just leave your bins open, put everything into a plastic bag so that littering is less on the street. And then to say, guys, let's keep our street clean. So the impact, more than just the environment, because we cleaned out the park too, so it was looking clean, safe, and welcoming, is that the property owner in one of the streets, I think on Hartford Road, started seeing the occupancy going up in his property, because people were already saying it's clean here, people are not getting marked of their cell phones. So the environment was already looking good.
Wow. And then today as well, one of the main things that are always hot topics, why do you think the sudden drive behind going towards green energy, and what influence does clean environment or a good waste management system have on the impact of producing green energy?
Yeah, so I think waste management plays a crucial role in terms of climate change or global warming, climate action. So if you look at the city of Joburg right now, entire city, the municipality is not at a point where they do separation at source or separating waste. So like for example, you look at food waste from households and commercial and industrial, waste. So you find that, especially with waste, you find recyclables that can be collected and be used for recycling to create other materials so that they're not buried into a landfill site. And then the food waste that is then sent through to the landfill site is actually the one that contributes to the emissions.
Is it?
Yes, the emissions. So especially the methane gas. So all the composting, so as the food remains or the food waste in the landfill site that gets decomposed, and then it generates the methane, the methane gas, which is one of the greenhouse gases going to the atmosphere. So those are the things that we are working on to find ways and means to have less waste off the streets, because the impact on the street is different. So you find that on the streets, like you block your drains, it's not safe. The kids can play around with waste and eat or get sick from all sorts of waste that you can find, like syringes you can find on the streets, used medical, whatever, supplies, etc., etc., and other objects full of bacteria that can cause harm, And then you can also find that with the waste and illegal dumping that you find in some of the spots in the inner cities, that you find like rodent infestation.
What causes that? Why are there so many rats, do you think?
Yeah, so the rats are caused by, especially in illegal dumping spots. So rats, they thrive in dirty spaces, so they go in there looking for food, and all of that. So if somebody dumps anything of waste from their household, they dump everything, including food waste, onto the street, as an example. So as an illegal dumping site, you find that then those rodents just find the opportunity there. So, however, in terms of the green economy and all of that, so we are working towards working with the municipality to then have less recyclable materials, recycling going to the landfill sites, and also finding solutions to actually decompose food waste in an environment where it doesn't emit the greenhouse gases or the gas called methane.
Now, Johannesburg is known. Johannesburg is one of the highest emitters of pollution. And how is it in other parts of the world? What trends have you seen that might be able to lessen the high, or even in South Africa? What do you think is something that you say for busy cities? These are some of the initiatives that communities can take to fight emissions.
So there's a couple of interventions that communities can do. I think our focus is more on individuals and households, especially with waste management. I know the greenhouse gases, they focus on fossil fuels, big carbon emissions, But what we find and understand that the methane gas out of food waste that is decomposed in the landfills is actually very dangerous and contributes to the greenhouse gases and global warming. So the solutions that we're looking at from a waste management point of view is less waste into the landfill site. So anything that goes into a landfill site, of which the municipalities, and including the city of Joburg, is running out of space. So the food waste can then be generated and be decomposed into organic compost that can be used for in the farms or planting vegetables at home or whatever. So there's reuse for it. And then any other waste products like your plastics, your glass, your paper can also be recycled to develop or create other products other than being sent into a landfill site. So there's a couple of things that people can do. For example, planting trees.
I was going to ask about
that. Planting trees at home, so trees are very good, to absorb the carbon. So it's something that you as an individual that you can do as a household. We've also seen and participated in a number of activations and projects where we planted trees. I think planting trees is one of the good things that we can do because they absorb carbon. And then there's a number of other interventions in terms of transport. Instead of people using their own cars and emitting so much carbon, we can get, I think the transport system in South Africa is such a challenge. It's one of the things that people can look at, or the government can look at, or municipalities to get our transport system better, so that people get into bigger transport modes instead of traveling in their own cars. You know, a number of other interventions, you know, that can have less carbon going into the atmosphere.
Just for those who don't know, I heard emphasis on methane gas, and you said it can be pretty dangerous. What makes it dangerous, or can you just explain the dangers of methane gas, and then how households can look out for, you know, lessening methane gas?
So methane gas, from our perspective in waste management, is from food waste. So and the households, you know, if they are able to actually separate the food waste and not send it with their normal waste, you know, an ideal situation would be at each household you separate your food waste, which is your wet waste, with your solid waste. And then with your solid waste, then you can separate the plastics from the paper and the glass, and have that sent in, or send that through to a recyclable or recycling station. For somebody's, either you sell it, you can make money off it, or send it there, they can find ways and mechanisms to use it for, to create other products. But then with the food waste, so like if we are a household that enjoys having a garden and all this, so you can use the decomposting methods from that perspective, using the appropriate equipment that you can then use that food waste into your garden, you know, other than sending it into a landfill site and causing methane. So our understanding of methane is that it's one of the greenhouse gases. So as it is emitted from a landfill site or anywhere else, it goes into the atmosphere as one of those greenhouse gases. So then it impacts on global warming, etc. I don't know the technicalities out of that, but that's how I understand it.
And then my second last question to you: we are upon, well, the digital era is now upon us. Running your company and looking at it maybe 5 years before, and just maybe companies in general, what would you say, or how have you incorporated digital into the way you do your work, and how do you see the digital era you know, playing or impacting the business world moving forward?
Yeah, so the times that we live in now is everything is electronic, it's digital, it's quick, it's social media, everybody has access, or a lot of people have access, maybe not in South Africa, but some people have access to the digital world, have access to the internet, etc., etc. So in terms of our organization, there are certain solutions that we are looking at to assist municipalities with waste management. Like we were talking about, to say we want to start directing households in terms of how they can separate waste material, like I was talking here, to separate food waste as well as solid waste, and then all the recyclables being sent for recycling, can make money of that, food waste into composting, and then whatever is left that cannot be recycled can then be sent to a waste management company, municipal waste management company, to send it to a landfill site. But effectively what we are driving is to assist households to say, guys, how do you separate that? Where can you send your recyclable products to, you know, around your area, and then what it can be used for. So we want to start teaching people at a household level to start separating their waste at source. So, but we're looking at like electronic means of doing that, through videos, through social media, through the internet, you know, and then so that's what we are focusing on going to the future. And we're very fortunate that we are working on another project called Net Zero.
Okay, tell me more about that.
So the Net Zero waste is, we want to advocate to the municipalities. We're going to start with the a small part to the inner city of Joburg to say, hey, guys, can we look at, I don't know at this stage, but what we want to drive is that the municipalities should have a policy, if they don't have, or include in the policy, or try to implement the net zero waste. So what do you mean that? So whatever that is being used mustn't be said, there mustn't be any waste to it. You know, we find ways what to do with wet waste, we find what to do with electronic waste, what do we do with any waste that you have other than sending it into a landfill site. You know, ideally there should be net zero waste. Whatever that you've used, you can always find reuse for it. For example, a bag, an old bag can be created, like you can put soil into an old bag, plant, you know, fruit or veggies in it. So other than sending that bag into a landfill site, there's reuse. So we're trying to facilitate a situation where a municipality like a city of Joburg start considering the implementation or in their policy of net zero waste.
Wonderful. And then where are some of the places that, where the Clean City SA has grown into? I know you started off as just the street, but or where are some of the places that you've grown into, and maybe where you see yourself growing into?
So Clean City SA, we cut our teeth in the inner city of Joburg when we started those weekly voluntary cleanup campaigns. And we've seen the impact, particularly in Berea. And then within that, because we're an organization that works with other organizations within the inner city of Joburg, and then we partnered with the Johannesburg Inner City Partnership. It's an NGO that works within the inner city of Joburg in urban management and project management and so forth. So as an organization working in waste management, so they clubbed in with us, Clean City, and other organizations operating within the inner city. Some organizations that are into music, into urban space, into sport, etc., into what is called the Social Employment Fund. So the Johannesburg Inner City Partnership received an award for Social Employment Fund, of which Clean City is a partner as a partner organization to the GICP to implement some of the social employment programs within the inner city. And then of course our focus is on waste management. So our contribution into that project is around street sweeping and litter picking. So phase one of the project, it was in the inner city, of course, that's where we operate. We were allocated by the GICP 250 participants of the SEF to manage on a day-to-day basis. So we were doing street sweeping and litter picking from December 2022. We just finished that project on the 20th of August. So we operated from the Metro taxi rank. It's a very busy transport hub. We had a team there. Then we had a team at Atwell Park. It's a popular park next to the St. Mary's Cathedral here in the inner city. There's that popular De Villiers Street.
Yes.
Then we had another team at Jubed Park. It's another big area. And then there's a lot of transport nodes, Drill Hall, all the way down to Duronfontein. So we allocated 250 participants that have been doing street sweeping and litter picking on a daily basis. And that project has just been extended now. We're starting phase 2. I just finished a meeting now with the supervisors going through the new guidelines for phase 2 of the project, which is now will increase our allocation from the GICP of the participants from 250 people to 327 people. So now we're going to have a bigger reach in terms of people doing SEF participants that are managed by Clean City into 15 sites. So we had 10 teams in our previous project, but this project now we're going to have 15 teams that will have now a bigger impact in the inner city. So within that, we're also working with Pick It Up, which is a municipal management company. So they assist us whatever we do we collect on the streets and open spaces, then they whisk that away out of the streets and open spaces.
Mr. Cele, it's been wonderful. My final and last question to you. Next year, we're celebrating 30 years of democracy in this country. And I'd just like your message in terms of where you've seen South Africa in the last 30 years and where you see it going in the future.
I think the biggest challenge for us as a country is governance, and another big issue is unemployment. I think I'll leave the governance side and just want to touch on the unemployment side. Everything, the economy is dependent on the amount of, employment it can create, so that people that work, they're able to then pay the taxes, which is income for the revenue for the state, and then they're able to provide for their families, for their livelihood. So with less people being involved or getting work, then it's detrimental to the ability of government to be able to execute their responsibilities in terms of service delivery and social responsibilities that the government has ahead. And then also a lot of unemployment also creates a situation where we find a lot of crime, in our areas and communities everywhere in the country. So I think the country really needs to find mechanisms to create more employment, more investment, to improve the governance and the perspective of how investors see South Africa as such. And then also people being trained and developed in the right skills. Somebody was saying, I read somewhere to say, you can have all the degrees that you can have and all the qualifications, but if you don't have the skills to do the right jobs, that are important for the economy, is to identify those skills that are required for in the world going into the future and to make South Africa competitive. I think for me, those are the key things that we need to look at as a country.
Mr. Dalu, thank you so much. And you are right here at the Podcast Cafe. This is the CEO of Tomorrow. My name is Razika Manwele. Until next time.